How to Be an Adult in Relationships by David Richo. Picture a guy named Walter. He's 40, works in construction, and seems to have it all figured out. His wife, Wanda, is the definition of stability. Sensible, loyal, an amazing mom to their 3 kids. They're home runs like clockwork. Friends look at them and think, now there's a couple that's got their act together. But Walter's living a double life. For 2.5 years, he's been sneaking around with Wilma, his office secretary. Late-night texts, motel meetings, the constant rush of almost getting caught. He's jealous, paranoid, and weirdly energized by the whole mess. It makes him feel 20 again. Oh, and there's more. Every couple of months, Walter slips into this sketchy adult arcade downtown. He stares at the screens, caught between fascination and shame, feeling both drawn in and disgusted with himself. Here's what Walter tells himself. Wanda makes him respectable. Wilma makes him feel alive. The arcade gives him a quick escape. As long as he keeps these 3 worlds from colliding, he's managing just fine. He thinks he's playing the game perfectly. David Richo shares this story not to judge Walter, but to hold up a mirror to all of us. Because underneath this messy situation is a question we're all wrestling with. What even is love? Is it the comfortable safety of Wanda? The electric passion of Wilma? Something else entirely? We're drowning in confused messages about love. Movies tell us it should sweep us off our feet. Songs promise it'll last forever. But what happens when the butterflies fade? When arguments start? When the person you thought was flawless turns out to be just as human and messy as you are? That's what David Richo's book, How to Be an Adult in Relationships, is really about. This isn't some quick-fix dating guide. It's a deep dive into becoming the kind of person who can build something real and lasting. Richo's a psychotherapist who brilliantly weaves together modern psychology and Eastern spiritual wisdom. His big idea? Most of us are trying to have grown-up relationships with the emotional toolkit of a 5-year-old. By the time we're done today, you'll understand the 5 essential ingredients, what Richo calls the 5 A's, that form the foundation of any healthy relationship. You'll see why your struggles and fights aren't proof that things are falling apart, but actually signs that you're on the right path. And most importantly, you'll discover that building a great relationship isn't about finding Mr. or Ms. Perfect. It's about becoming a more complete, aware, and loving version of yourself. So let's dive in. Think about learning to dance. Nobody's born knowing how to waltz or tango. Sure, you might have rhythm and desire, but without learning the actual steps and practicing them, you're basically just stumbling around, crushing your partner's toes. David Richo starts with this powerful comparison. Relationships work exactly the same way. We're all born with the ability to love, but almost nobody actually teaches us the skills we need to pull off real intimacy. Our first dance instructors, whether they were great or terrible, were our parents. And for most of us, that early training left us with some pretty awkward moves. Some of us got hurt, emotionally neglected, or worse, and it takes years just to feel safe enough to step onto the dance floor. Others were taught that dancing too close, being too vulnerable, was somehow wrong. Then we grow up and start looking for romantic partners, but we're still moving to the clumsy, half-remembered rhythm of our childhood. Here's the first big truth in this book. Your past is always showing up in your relationships. Deep in what Richo calls the cold ground of our psyche, our unmet childhood needs sit frozen, waiting to be healed. Maybe you didn't get enough attention. Maybe you weren't accepted for who you really were. Maybe nobody showed you physical affection. These aren't small things. They're the building blocks of a healthy sense of self. And here's the beautiful secret at the heart of this whole book. The exact things we needed as kids to feel whole are the same things we need now to have amazing adult relationships. Richo calls these the 5 A's. Think of them as the keys that unlock mindful, mature love. Everything in a healthy relationship comes down to giving and receiving these 5 things. So what are they? First, there's attention. not just hearing someone talk while you scroll your phone. Real attention means being genuinely present with another person. It's focused curiosity about who they actually are. Did your parents pay as much attention to you as they did to their favorite TV show? Did they notice your feelings with the same care they showed their car? Real attention isn't scrutinizing someone under a microscope, it's turning toward them like you've been waiting your whole life just to hear what they have to say. When someone gives you this kind of attention, you feel seen, you feel like you matter, it builds self-respect. Second is acceptance. This is being received exactly as you are, flaws and all. It's unconditional. It means someone supports your choices even when they'd choose differently. They're not constantly trying to renovate you into their ideal version. When you feel accepted, you can finally relax and be yourself. You don't have to hide parts of who you are. That safety is where real intimacy begins. Acceptance makes you feel inherently good. Third is appreciation. This goes deeper than just putting up with someone. It's actually delighting in them, admiring them, valuing their unique existence. It could be a word of praise, a wink when you do something well, or just a loving look when you're being completely yourself. Richo points out that behind almost every complaint in a relationship is a hidden wish for one of these 5 A's, and appreciation is huge. It creates a sense of self-worth. Fourth is affection. This is warmth expressed both physically and emotionally. The hug, the touch, the kind words, the romantic gestures. But here's the thing, how we first experienced love as kids gets encoded into every cell of our body. For one person, love feels like being held when they're hurting. For another, it's receiving gifts. For someone else, it's getting credit for their achievements. Adult relationships require us to learn our partner's unique love language and teach them ours. True affection makes us feel lovable. Finally, there's allowing. This is about freedom, letting your partner be their own person with their own thoughts, feelings, and choices without trying to control them. In healthy families, kids are allowed to separate and become unique individuals. In healthy relationships, partners give each other that same space. It means not treating the world like a dangerous place they need protection from, but trusting they can handle their own lives. Allowing gives us the freedom to pursue our own deepest needs, values, and dreams. Attention, acceptance, appreciation, affection, and allowing. These aren't just a nice checklist. They're the nourishment our souls need to grow, first in childhood, and then for the rest of our lives. The problem? Most of us enter relationships as starving children. If we didn't get enough of these 5 A's when we were young, we create what Richo calls a bottomless pit inside us. Then we meet someone, fall in love, and unconsciously demand that they fill that pit. We're basically asking an innocent person to fix a problem they didn't create and don't know how to solve. This is why so many relationships crash and burn. We're not actually having interactions between 2 adults. We're watching 2 wounded kids tugging at each other, both crying, "Fix what my childhood broke, make me feel whole." Which brings us to the journey every relationship has to take. Richo describes it like the hero's journey from ancient myths. It has 3 distinct phases. Skip one or get stuck, and the path to real intimacy fails. The first phase is romance. This is the beginning, the part everyone loves. It feels deeply joyful and moving because, maybe for the first time ever, those 5 A's are flowing freely in both directions. You feel seen, accepted, appreciated, and loved, and you're giving the same back. It's magical. But Richo offers a gentle reality check. Romance is real but temporary. In this phase, we're not actually in love with another person. We're in love with a projection. We see them not as they truly are, but as our ideal. It's not an I and you relationship yet. It's an I and my fantasy relationship. You've found your ego ideal, the perfect reflection of everything you've ever wanted. That's why they say love is blind. Richo clarifies, love isn't blind, romance is blind. It only sees what it wants to see. This is the falling in love phase. Richo finds that phrase interesting. We fall into a coma. We fall from grace. Falling implies losing control, becoming powerless. The goal of an adult, he suggests, isn't to fall in love but to rise in love, with conscious choice, clear-eyed fondness, and your sense of self still intact. The romance phase is beautiful and necessary. It creates the initial bond. But it can't last. Nature designed romance to be temporary. That constant adrenaline high would eventually wreck your immune system. It serves its purpose, bringing a couple together, then it naturally fades. And when it does, you enter the second and usually longest phase, conflict. This is where most people think the relationship is dying. The glow of romance gets replaced by tension. Suddenly, all the stuff you couldn't see before becomes glaringly obvious. Those cute quirks become annoying habits. The person you idealized becomes a real, flawed human being. Her pettiness, his selfishness, it all comes tumbling out. And here's Richo's radical message. This isn't a disaster. It's totally normal, necessary, and actually useful for building something lasting. Without this struggle, we'd get lost in each other and lose ourselves. Conflict is what allows us to separate from the romantic projection and become two distinct, whole people. This is where our pasts truly come alive. We hear ourselves saying exactly what our parents said to us. We catch ourselves unconsciously training our partner to replay our oldest, most painful disappointments. Why? Because our psyche is trying to heal itself. It's bringing up old wounds because, with a partner beside us, we might finally be ready to face them. During this phase, two primal fears rush in. They drive almost all relationship conflict: the fear of engulfment and the fear of abandonment. The fear of engulfment is about being smothered, losing your freedom, someone getting too close. It's that feeling of wanting to shout, "Back off, let me breathe." This fear often comes from childhood experiences with a controlling or intrusive parent who used you to meet their own needs. For someone with this fear, even a simple hug can feel threatening. The fear of abandonment is the opposite. It's the terror that if someone leaves, you won't survive emotionally. It makes you want to cry, "Don't leave me." This fear often connects to an early loss, maybe something as seemingly minor as a parent being in the hospital for a while. To a child, absence feels like rejection. Most of us carry both fears, but one usually dominates. And here's the cruel irony. Someone who fears engulfment, the distancer, often attracts someone who fears abandonment, the pursuer. The more the pursuer clings, the more the distancer pulls away. The more they pull away, the more desperately the pursuer clings. It's a painful dance at the heart of countless fights. So how do we navigate this tough phase? This is where the real work begins. It requires letting go of the biggest obstacle to intimacy, the ego. The ego isn't all bad, Richo explains. There's a healthy ego, the part that helps you function, make responsible choices, and see situations clearly. But there's also the neurotic ego, driven by fear and craving. If you're mainly focused on proving you're right in an argument, your neurotic ego is driving. If you're focused on how to make the relationship work, then cooperative love is steering. The neurotic ego comes in two main forms. First, there's the arrogant ego. This is the part that needs to be right, to be in charge, to win. Richo uses the acronym FACE to describe it: fear, attachment, control, and entitlement. This ego fears being wrong, gets attached to its version of how things should be, tries to control others, and feels entitled to get its way. It's the voice shouting, "How dare you do that to me?" The second form is the impoverished ego. This is the victim. The voice saying, "I'm powerless. Everything bad is someone else's fault." It's the follower too afraid to take charge, the self-blamer drowning in guilt, the person convinced they deserve nothing. It seems like the opposite of the arrogant ego, but it's just the flip side. The arrogant ego acts like a king. The impoverished ego acts like a helpless baby. But think about it. Babies are also the center of attention and control everyone's behavior. Both are driven by fear, and both make real intimacy impossible. So the central task of becoming an adult in relationships is learning to let go of the neurotic ego. But how? The neurotic ego has zero motivation to give itself up. This is where Richo introduces the most important tool in the entire book, mindfulness. Mindfulness is an ancient Buddhist practice, but you don't need to be Buddhist to use it. Richo describes it simply as alert witnessing of reality without judgment, attachment, fear, expectation, defensiveness, bias, or control. It's about being a fair observer rather than the judge, jury, and executioner of your own life. When a difficult thought or feeling shows up, like fear or the urge to prove you're right, you don't squash it down, but you also don't indulge it. You simply notice it. You label it, there's fear, and then gently guide your attention back to the present moment, often by focusing on your breath. Mindfulness creates space between a feeling and your reaction to it. In that space, you find freedom. You find the ability to choose a loving response instead of an ego-driven reaction. When you're mindful with your partner, you can be present for them without the 5 ego mindsets getting in the way: fear, desire, judgment, control, or illusion. You can simply be with them as they are. You take what they do as information, not as a personal attack. A healthy relationship, he says, has more and more of these spacious, mindful moments. By practicing mindfulness, we learn to say yes to things we can't change. Richo calls these the givens of existence. 1. Everything changes and ends. 2. Things don't always go according to plan. 3. Life isn't always fair. 4. Pain is part of life. 5. People aren't loving and loyal all the time. The neurotic ego fights these realities. It feels entitled to an exception. It screams, "That can't happen to me." The mindful adult accepts them. When we stop arguing with reality, we find peace. And this acceptance, this letting go of ego, opens the door to the third and final phase, commitment. This isn't the commitment of the romance phase, which was based on fantasy. This is commitment with eyes wide open. It's saying, I know all your quirks and I've seen your worst sides, and I'm choosing you anyway. This is where 2 healthy egos relate. You still argue, but the fights don't last as long, and they end in resolution. You stop trying to possess your partner and instead work to strengthen the relationship. You fight, but you don't stop loving. But here's Richo's crucial distinction. An adult combines unconditional love with conditional commitment. What does that mean? Unconditional love is a spiritual achievement. It means you love the core of the other person, their basic goodness, no matter what. This love isn't conditioned by your ego's fears or demands. But commitment is conditioned by whether things are actually working. An adult commits to a person when the relationship is functional, or at least workable. You don't vow to stay till death do us part, no matter how miserable or abusive things get. That's not commitment. That's a prison sentence. A healthy adult can say, I love you no matter what, but I can't live with you if this isn't working. This is the healthy embrace, not the desperate clutch. And when you reach this phase, something incredible happens. Your love starts expanding. The skills you've learned, giving the 5 A's, releasing ego, working through conflict, you start applying them not just to your partner, but to everyone. Your relationship becomes training ground for universal compassion. You bring the wisdom you've gained back into the wider world. This leads to the final, beautiful reframing of the idea of a soulmate. We usually think of a soulmate as our other half, the one person who'll complete us. Richo says this is a mistake. It puts all our inner power onto an external person. The real soulmate, he suggests, is the inner partner we find within ourselves. It's the union of our own masculine and feminine energies. It's becoming whole in ourselves. Here's the mystery. It takes another person to lead us back to ourselves. A partner is the mirror that helps us find our own soul. When we find that inner wholeness, we no longer need a partner to complete us. Instead, we can join with them as two whole people, walking side by side, sharing a journey. We stop searching for the one person who can give us everything, and become deeply grateful for the moments of love, perfectly given and received, that sustain us along the way. The journey isn't easy. It asks us to face our past, our fears, and our ego. But it transforms us from a needy child, looking for someone to save us, into a loving adult capable of creating something beautiful, not in some faraway paradise, but right here, within ourselves, and with the person we choose to love. As we wrap up our exploration of David Richo's work, it's worth pausing to think about why this book feels so different, so much deeper than most relationship advice out there. It doesn't offer tricks for making someone fall for you. It doesn't promise a 5-step plan to the perfect marriage. Instead, it offers something far more valuable and far more challenging: a path to becoming a whole person. The most powerful lesson here is the radical shift in perspective it demands. The journey of love isn't an external hunt for the right person. It's an internal journey to be the right person. The quality of your relationships directly reflects the quality of your relationship with yourself. Richo shows us that everything we struggle with, the conflicts, fears, disappointments, these aren't problems to eliminate. They're the curriculum. They're the challenges life gives us to help us grow, to let go of the ego keeping us small and scared, and to open up to a bigger, more generous love. The goal isn't a life without problems, but becoming the kind of person who can navigate life's inevitable rough patches with grace, humor, and generosity. This isn't a message of easy comfort. It's a call to a heroic journey. It requires courage. The courage to look at your childhood wounds, admit your fears, see your own shadow, and take responsibility for your own happiness. So how can you start putting this wisdom into practice today? Here are 3 simple actions you can take. First, identify your primary A. Of the 5 A's, attention, acceptance, appreciation, affection, and allowing, which one do you crave most in your relationships? Is it being truly heard? The safety of being accepted for who you are? Just knowing your primary need is the first step toward understanding yourself and learning to ask for what you need in healthy adult ways. Second, practice becoming a fair witness for 5 minutes. Next time you feel a strong negative emotion, frustration with a friend, anxiety about school, whatever, try not to immediately react or push it away. Just notice it. Say to yourself, there's frustration. Watch it like a cloud passing in the sky. You don't have to do anything about it. This simple act of mindful awareness creates that space between feeling and reaction, where your freedom and power live. Third, consciously give one of the 5 A's today. Give someone your full, undivided attention for a few minutes without checking your phone. Offer genuine appreciation for something they did, no matter how small. Or, practice allowing, by letting go of the need to control a situation or someone else's choice. Shifting your focus from getting love to being a source of love is one of the most powerful transformations you can make. That was a summary of How to Be an Adult in Relationships by David Richo. We've covered the core ideas today, but here's the truth. A summary is like looking at travel photos of the Grand Canyon. It shows you the pictures and tells you the facts, but it can never replace standing on the edge yourself, feeling the wind, experiencing that vast, breathtaking beauty firsthand. The real magic of a book like this happens in the quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or simple phrase lands in your heart in an unexpected way. This summary is your preview, designed to help you decide if this is a journey worth taking. If anything we've discussed today sparked something in you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change how you see yourself, your past, and the beautiful, challenging dance of love. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you something new to think about, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps me know this work is making a difference and ensures you won't miss our next deep dive into another life-changing book. Let's keep growing together.